Good morning, students. Best of luck for your periodic test second. Today we will start the revision of history, chapter number 7, tribes, nomads and settled communities. Student, you are all acquainted about the pattern of your online examination paper. There will be 20 MCQ type questions and you will get each question. Each question has 4 options and you have to choose the correct one from the given options. Understand? So now come on the chapter. Dear student, to know that in large parts of the subcontinent, society was already divided according to the rules of Varna. These rules as prescribed by the Brahmanas. Understand? And were accepted by the rulers of larger kingdoms. So the difference between the high and low and between the rich and poor increased. Under the Delhi sultans and the Mughals, the hierarchies between social classes grew further. Afterward, we are coming to the first subtopic. The first subtopic is beyond big cities, tribal societies. Dear student, you know that there were, however, other kinds of societies as well. Many societies in the subcontinent did not follow the social rules and rituals prescribed by the Brahmanas, and now were they divided into numerous unequal classes. Such societies are often called tribes. Understand? Tribes did not follow the rituals and the dogmas that were prescribed by the Brahmanas. Dear student, you know that members of each tribe were united by kinship, family, relationship bonds. Many tribes obtained their livelihood from agriculture. Others were hunter-gatherers or herders. Most often they combined these activities to make full use of the natural resources of the area in which they lived. Some tribes were nomadic and moved from one place to another place. A tribal group controlled land and pastures jointly, meadows jointly, and divided these amongst households according to its own rules. Understand? So we get that tribal societies were living equally in combined way. Understand? Afterward, the next subtopic is who were tribal people. Who were tribal people? Dear student, you know that historians, contemporary historians and travelers give very scanty, very few information about tribes. A few exceptions apart, tribal people did not keep written records, but they preserved rich customs and oral traditions, and these were passed down to each new generation. And we know that today historians, present historians have started using such oral traditions to write tribal histories. Understand? So we know that tribal people were found almost every region of the subcontinent, and the area and influence of a tribe varied at different points of a time. Understand? So we are going to know about the tribe who were living in the subcontinent area. Some powerful tribes controlled large territories. In Punjab, we get Khokhar tribe was very influential during the 13th and 14th centuries. Afterward, the Gakhars became more important, and their chief, the chief of Gakhar tribe, was Kamal Khan Gakhar, and he was made a noble Mansabdar by Emperor Akbar in Multan and Sindh. Understand? The Langhas and Arghuns dominated extensive regions before they were subdued by the Mughals. The Balochis were another large and powerful tribe. Tribe in the northwest. So they were divided into many smaller clans under different chiefs. In the western Himalaya lived the Shepherd tribe of Gaddis. The distant northeastern part of the subcontinent too was entirely dominated by tribes, the Nagas, Ahoms, and many tribes. Understand? So in many area, you know that present day Bihar and Jharkhand Chero chiefdoms had emerged by the 12th century. Raja Mansingh, Akbar's famous general, attacked and defeated the Cheros in 1591, and a large amount of booty was taken from them, but they were not entirely subdued under Aurangzeb. Understand? One term we have to know, that clan. A clan is a group of families or households claiming descent from a common ancestor. Tribal organization is often based on kinship or clan loyalties. So Mughal forces, you know that, captured Chero fortresses and subjugated the tribe, defeated the tribe. The Mundas and Santals were among the another important tribes that live in this region, and also in Odisha and Bengal. And in Maharashtra, Highlands, Karnataka were home of Kolis, Berads, and numerous others. Kolis also lived in many areas of Gujarat, and there were large tribal population of Koragal, Betars, Marwars, and many tribes. Understand? So we know that the large tribes of Bhils was spread across western and central India by the late 16th century, and many of them had become settled agriculturalists and some even zamindars. Many Bhil clans nevertheless remained hunter gatherers. Understand? Afterward, we are coming the next subtopic, and the next subtopic is how nomads and mobile people lived. Mobile people means one who goes one place to another place. So nomadic pastoralist means one who goes one place to another place in the search of pasture land. So nomadic pastoralists moved over long distances with their animals, and they lived on milk and other pastoral products. What are the pastoral products? They also exchanged wool, pastoral products, wool, ghee, etc. with settled agriculturalists for grain, cloth, utensils, and other products. Understand? And they bought and sold these goods as they moved from one place to another place, transporting them on their animals. Afterward, we are going to know that the Banjaras were Banjaras. The Banjaras were the most important trader nomads, and their karwa was called Tanda. So we know that the Banjaras were the most important trader nomads, and their karwa was called Tanda. Sultan Alauddin Khalji used the Banjaras to transport grain to the city markets. Emperor Jahangir wrote in his memoirs that the Banjaras carried grain on their bullocks from different areas and sold it in towns. Understand? And they transported food, grain from the Mughal army during military campaigns. With a large army, there could be 1 lakh bullocks carrying grain. Understand? Afterward, we are coming to know that the Banjaras, about the Banjaras, Peter Mundy, an English trader who came to India during the early 17th century, has described about the Banjara. Afterward, we have to know that nomads and itinerant groups. Itinerant groups means one who goes one place to another place. Nomads and wandering people. Many of them are pastoralists who roam from one pasture to another with their flocks and herds in search of pasture land, in search of a meadow. Similarly, itinerant groups such as craft persons, peddlers, and entertainers travel from place to place practicing their different occupations. Understand? Both nomads and itinerant, itinerant groups often visit the same place every year. Students, the next subtopic is changing society, new caste and hierarchies. Dear student, you know that as the economy and the needs of society grew, people with new skills were required, and smaller caste or jatis emerged within Varnas. For example, new caste appeared amongst the Brahmanas. On the other hand, many tribes and social groups were taken into caste-based society and given the status of jati. So, different jatis emerged within Varnas also. Specialized artisans, smiths, carpenters, masons were also recognized as separate jatis by the Brahmanas. Jatis rather than Varna, they were came in the category of jatis. Became the basis for organizing the jatis rather than Varna became the basis for organizing society. Deliberations on jati. A 12th century inscription from Udaya Kundan Udayar in Tiruchirappalli Taluka in present day Tamil Nadu describes the deliberations on in a Sabha. Chapter 2 we get that of Brahmanas, and they deliberated on the status of a group known as Ratha Karaj. Literally we say chariot makers. And during that time, among the Kshatriyas, new Rajput clans became powerful by the 11th and 12th centuries, and they belong to different lineages such as Hunaj, Chandelas, Chalukyas and others. Dear student, you know that many tribes became part of the caste system, but only the leading tribal families could join the ruling class. Leading tribal families only join the ruling class. A large majority joined the lower jatis in a caste system society, and on the other hand, many dominant powerful tribes of Punjab, Sindh, and the northwest frontier had adopted Islam quite early, and they continued to reject the caste system. Understand? The unequal social order prescribed by orthodox Hinduism was not widely accepted in these areas. Afterward, we are coming to the next subtopic. The next subtopic is a closer look the Gonds. Dear student, you know that The Gonds, who lived in a vast forested region called Gondwana, are country inhabited by Gonds, and they practiced shifting cultivation. What do you mean by the term shifting cultivation? Trees and bushes in a forest area are cut and afterward burnt. After burning, the crop will be sown. It's sown in the ashes. When this land loses its fertility after cultivation, when this land loses its fertility after a long time, another plot of land is also cleared and planted in the same way. Understand? So this will be known as shifting cultivation. So the last Gond tribe was further divided into. Student, we know that the many, oh sorry, uh, the last Gond tribe was further divided into many smaller clans, and each clan had its own Raja or Rai. About the time that the power of Delhi Sultan was declining, a few large Gond kingdoms were beginning to dominate the smaller Gond chiefs. The Akbarnama, a history of Akbar's reign, mentions the Gond kingdom of Gadh Katanga that had 17,000 villages. Understand? So we will know about the administrative system of these kingdoms. The administrative system of these kingdoms was becoming centralized, and the kingdom was divided into Gards, and each Gard was controlled by a particular Gond clan, and this was Gard was also divided further into units of 84 villages called Chaurasi. Afterward, the Chaurasi was subdivided into Barhots, which were made of 12 villages each. The emergence of large state changed the nature of Gond societies. Understand? Student, you know that Brahmanas received land grants from the Gond Rajas and became more influential, powerful. The Gond chiefs now wished to be recognized as Rajput, so Amandas, the Gond Raja of Gadh assumed the title of Sangram Shah. Understand? Afterward, his son Dalpat married Princess Durgavati, the daughter of Salbahan, the Chandel Rajput Raja of Mahoba. Dalpat, however, died early. Rani Durgavati was very capable and started ruling on behalf of her 5-year-old son Bir Narayan. Under her, the kingdom, under uh, the rule of Rani Durgavati, when Rani Durgavati was very capable, started ruling on behalf of her 5-year-old son Bir Narayan, and under her the kingdom became even more extensive. In 1565, the Mughal forces under the Asaf Khan attacked Gadh Katanga. A strong resistance protest was put up by Rani Durgavati, and she was defeated and preferred to die rather than surrender. Understand? And her son too died fighting soon after. Dear student, we know that Gadh Katanga was a rich state and it earned much wealth by trapping and exporting wild elephants to other kingdoms. When Mughals defeated the Gonds, they captured huge booty of precious coins and elephants, and they annexed part of the kingdom and granted the rest to Chandra Shah, an uncle of Veer Narayan. The next subtopic is the Ahoms. Student, you know that the Ahoms migrated to the Brahmaputra valley from present day Myanmar in the 13th century, and they created a new state by suppressing the older political system, created a new political system of the Bhuyans. Bhuyans means landlords during the 16th century, and they annexed the kingdoms of the Chutias 1523 and Koch Hazo 1581, and they also defeated many other tribes. Understand? However, we know that the Ahoms faced many invasions from the southwest. In 1662, the Mughal under Mir Jumla attacked the Ahom kingdom, and despite their brave defense, the Ahoms were defeated, but the direct control over the reign could not last long. Dear student, you know that the Ahom state depended upon forced labor, and forced labor, what do you say? Those forced to work for the state were called packs. Understand? And a census of the population was taken, and each village had to send a number of packs by rotation. People from heavily populated areas were shifted to less populated areas. We know that a home society was divided into clans or khils, and there were few castes or artisans. So artisans in the Ahom areas came from the adjoining kingdoms, and khel often controlled several villages. Understand? You know that Ahom worshipped their own tribal gods, but during the first half of the 17th century, however, the influence of Brahmanas increased. Temples and Brahmanas were granted land by the king. During the reign of Sib Singh 1714 to 1744, Hinduism became the predominant religion. Ahom kings did not completely give up their traditions after beliefs after adopting Hinduism. Understand? So we know that Ahom society was very sophisticated. Poets and scholars were given land grants. Theatre was encouraged. Important works of Sanskrit were translated into the local language. Historical works known as, what do you understand by the term? Buranjis. Buranjis means historical works known as Buranjis were also written first in the Ahom language, then in Assamese. Understand? At last, conclusion, we say that burn based society and tribal people constantly interacted with each other, and this interaction caused both kinds of societies to adapt and change. So there were many different tribes, and they took up diverse livelihoods, and over a period of time many of them merged with caste based society. So I hope that you have understood this chapter. Afterward we will revise the next chapter. Dear student, now we will start the revision of the chapter Devotional Paths to the Divine. You have seen people perform rituals of worship, or singing bhajans, kirtans or kavalis, or even repeating the name of God in silence, and notice that some of them are moved to tears. Such intense devotion or love of God is the legacy of various kinds of bhakti and Sufi movements. that have evolved since the 8th century. Afterward, we are coming the first subtopic, the idea of a supreme god. Dear student, you know that before large kingdom emerged, different groups of people worshipped their own gods and goddesses. As people were brought together through the growth of towns, trade and empires, new ideas began to develop. The idea that all living beings pass through countless cycles of birth and rebirth, performing good deeds and bad came to be widely accepted. Similarly, the idea that all human beings are not equal, even at birth, gained ground during this period. The belief that social privilege came from a birth in a noble family or a high caste was the subject of many learned texts. Many people were uneasy with such ideas and turned to the teachings of the Buddha or the Jainas, according to which it was possible to overcome social differences and break the cycle of birth through personal effort. Others felt attracted to the idea of a supreme god who could deliver humans from such bondage if approached with devotion of bhakti. And this idea, advocated, supported in the Bhagavad Gita, grew in popularity in the early century of the Common Era. And other gods and goddesses who were prevalent in Hinduism, Shiva, Vishnu, and Durga, Durga as supreme deities came to be worshipped through elaborate rituals. So you know that local myths and legends became a part of the Puranic stories. The Purans also laid down it was possible for devotees to receive the grace of God regardless of their caste status. Anyone can worship the God irrespective of their caste and creed. Understand? So the idea of bhakti became so popular that even Buddhists and Jainas adopted these beliefs. The next subtopic is a new kind of bhakti in South India, Nayanars and Alvars. So you know that Nayanars means one who devoted to Shiva and Alvars who were devoted to Vishnu. The seventh to ninth century saw the emergence of new religious movement led by Nayanar saints devoted to Shiva and Alvar saints devoted to Vishnu, who came from all castes including those considered untouchable like the Pulayar and the Panars, and they were sharply critical. Nayanars and Alvars, they were very sharply critical of the Buddhist and Jainas and preached ardent love, great love of Shiva or Vishnu as the path to salvation. According to Nayanars and Alvars, Shiva is the supreme god. Shiva and Vishnu are the supreme god for the salvation. Understand? And they drew upon the ideals of love and heroism as found in the Sangam literature, the earliest example of Tamil literature. Understand? The Nayanars and Alvars went went from place to place, composing exquisite, beautiful poems in praise of their deities enshrined in the villages they visited and set them to music. The student, you know that there were 63 Nayanas who belong to different caste backgrounds, and there were 12 Alvars who were from different backgrounds. grounds. Understand? So afterward we know that between the 10th and 12th centuries, the Cholas and Pandya kings built elaborate temples around many of the shrines visited by the saint poets. Why? Strengthening the links between the Bhakti tradition and temple worship. And this was the time when their poems were compiled. Besides, hagiography. What do you understand by the term hagiography? Writing of a saint's life. Hagiographies are religious biographies of the lovers and Nayanars were composed. Understand? And today we use this text as source for writing histories of the Bhakti tradition. Understand? So there is a one devotee of the Lord, Mani Kabba Sagar. Afterward, we are coming to the next subtopic, philosophy of Bhakti. Sankara, one of the most influential philosophers of India, was born in Kerala in the 8th century, and he was advocate of Advaita, or the doctrine of oneness of the individual soul and the supreme God, which is the ultimate reality. So Sankara believes in Advaita. Advaita means one, and Dvaita means two. And he taught that Brahmin soul, the only or ultimate reality, was formless and without any attributes. He considered the world around us to be an illusion or Maya. Understand? And preached renunciation to leave the world, renunciation of the world, and adoption of the path of knowledge to understand the true nature of Brahman and attain salvation. According to him, to leave the world, to attain salvation. Afterward, we know that Ramanuja, born in Tamil Nadu in the 11th century, he was deeply influenced by Alvars, means the devotees to Vishnu. According to him, the best means of attaining salvation was through intense devotion to Vishnu. Vishnu, in his grace, helps the devotee to attain the bliss of union with him. Understand? And he propounded the doctrine of Vishisht, that are qualified oneness. And his doctrine was prominent in North India. Afterward, we are coming the next subtopic, Basavanna Veera Saivism. We noticed that Veera Saiva movement initiated by Basavanna and his companions like Alama Prabhu and Akka Mahadevi, and this movement began in Karnataka in the mid 12th century. And the Veera Saivas argued strongly for the equality of all human beings and against Brahminical ideas about caste and treatment of women. Understand? So they rejected rituals and dogmas that were made by the Brahmanas. They were also against all forms of ritual and idol worship. Understand? We are coming to the next subtopic, the saints of Maharashtra. From the 13th to the 17th century, Maharashtra saw a great number of saint poets, and whose songs in simple Marathi continue to inspire people. And the most important among them were Janeshwar, Namdev, Eknath and Tukaram, as well as women like Sakhubai and the family of Chokha Mela, and who belong to the untouchable Meher caste. And this regional tradition of bhakti focused on the Vithala as a form of a Vishnu, temple of Pandharpur, as well as on the notion of a personal God residing in the hearts of all people. So we know that these saint poets rejected all forms of ritualism, outward display of piety, and social differences based on birth. In fact, they also rejected the idea of renunciation, leaving home, leaving the world, and preferred to live with their families. Understand? So a new humanist idea emerged as they insisted the bhakti. According to Maharashtrian saints, they believe in sharing others' pain, as the famous Gujarati saint Naharsi Mehta said, they are Vaishnavas who understand the pain of other. There is the Abhang Marathi devotional hymn. Hymn means bhajan of Saint Tukaram. Understand? Afterward, we are coming the next subtopic, Nathpanthis, Siddhas and Yogis. Dear student, you know that a number of religious groups that emerged during this period, and they also criticized rituals and other aspects of conventional religion and the social order. So you know that Nathpanthis, Siddhacharas and Yogis, they advocated renunciation of the world, to leave the world. To them, the path to salvation lay in meditation on the formless ultimate reality and the realization of oneness with it. To achieve this, they supported what? Intense training of the mind and body through practice like yoga asanas, breathing exercises and meditation. These are necessary to get salvation, to unite with God, ultimate reality, and these groups became particularly popular among low castes. Understand? And in North India. Afterward, we are coming the next subtopic, Islam and Sufism. Dear student, you know that the Sants had much common with the Sufis. So much so that Sufis are common just like Sants, so that it is believed that they adopted many ideas of each other. And who were Sufis? Sufis were Muslim mystics, propagator. They rejected outward religiosity and they emphasized love. They forced love and devotion to God and compassion, kindness towards all fellow human beings. According to Islam, Islam supported strict monotheism. Monotheism means believe in one God or submission to one God. Believe. It also rejected idol worship and considerably simplified rituals of worship into collective prayers. Islam believe in collective prayers, and at the same time Muslim scholars developed a holy law called Shariat. Understand? And the Sufis often rejected the elaborate rituals and codes of behavior demanded by many Muslim religious scholars. Understand? Some of the Muslim saints, Sufis are among them. Great Sufis of Central Asia were Ghazali, Rumi and Sadi. Like the Nathpanthis, Siddhas and Yogis, the Sufis too believed that the heart can be trained to look at the world in a different way. So they developed elaborate methods of training. Zikr. Zikr means chanting of a name or sacred formula. Contemplation. Sama means singing. Raks means dancing. Discussions of parables. Breath control, etc. These are important to unite with God, and under the guidance of a master or peer. And this silsila emerged, and a genealogy of Sufis teachers, each following slightly different method, tariqa of instruction and ritual practice. These are the ritual practice that are in silsila, that is different, that is a different way. These are the different ways of instructions and ritual practices. And student, you know that the Delhi Sultanate supported Sufis, and several Sufi centers developed all around the subcontinent during the time of Delhi Sultanate. And the Chishti Silsila was among the most influential orders. Understand? And it had a long line of teachers like Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti of Ajmer, Qutbuddin Bakhtiyar Kaki of Delhi, Baba Farid of Punjab, Khwaja Nizamuddin Aulia of Delhi, and Banda Nawaz Gyasu Daraz of Gulbarg, Kashmir. Hospice, one term is coming, hospice, house of rest for travelers, especially one kept by a religious order. So you know that the Sufi master held their assemblies in their khankah. Khankahs are hospices, which we say khankahs are hospices. And in khankah are hospices, devotees of all descriptions, including members of the royalty and nobility and ordinary people, flocked, gathered to these khankah, and they discussed rituals, spiritual matters, sought the blessings of the saints in solving their worldly problems, or simply attended the music and dance session. Understand? The next subtopic is new religious developments in North India. The period after the 13th century saw a new wave of bhakti movement in North India, and this was an age when Islam, Brahminical Hinduism, Sufism, various strands of bhakti, and the Nath Panthis, Siddhas, and Yogis influenced one another. Understand? So we got this. So afterward we are getting that we saw also that new towns, kingdoms were emerging, and people were taking up new professions and finding new roles for themselves, such people, especially craftspersons, peasants, traders, and labored thronged to listen to these new saints and spread their ideas. We are coming here. Some of like Kabir and Baba Guru Nanak, they rejected all orthodox religions. Others like Tulsidas and Surdas accepted existing beliefs and practices but wanted to make these accessible to all. Tulsidas concept of God in the form of Rama. Tulsidas composition, the Ramcharitmanas, was written in Awadhi, a language used in eastern UP, Uttar Pradesh. Understand? Is important both as an expression of his devotion and his literary work. Surdas was ardent devotee of Krishna, and his compositions compiled in the Sursagra, Sur, Saravli, and Sahitya Lahari express his devotion. Understand? Afterward we get that also contemporary was Sankaradeva of Assam, late 15th century, who emphasized devotion to Vishnu and composed poems and plays in Assamese. Understand? And he also began to practice of setting up namghars or houses of recitation of prayer, a practice that continues to date. Understand? Afterward, we also had heard the name of saints like Daddu Dayal, Ravidas, and Mirabai. And we know that Mirabai was a Rajput princess married into the royal family of Mewar in the 16th century. Mirabai became a disciple of Ravidas, a saint from a caste considered, which we imagine, untouchable, and she was a devotee of Krishna. She composed innumerable poems, bhajans expressing her intense devotion. Her songs also openly challenged in the norms of upper caste and became popular with the masses of Rajasthan and Gujarat. Understand? Afterward, we are coming the next subtopic, and the next subtopic is a closer look Kabir. Kabir, who probably lived in the 15th 16th century, was the most influential saints. He was brought up in a family of Muslim Julahas or weavers settled in or near the city of Banaras, today we say Varanasi. And we know about a vast collection of verses called Sakhis, Pads, said to have been composed by him and sung by wandering bhajan singer who goes one place to another place. Some of these were collected and preserved in the Guru Granth Sahib, Panchvani and Bija. Understand? And we know that Kabir believed in a formless supreme God and preached that the only path to salvation was through bhakti. Next subtopic is closer look Baba Guru Nanak. We know more about Baba Guru Nanak 1469 to 1539, about Kabir. He was born at Talwandi, Nankana Sahib in Pakistan. He travelled widely before establishing a center at Kartarpur, Dera Baba Nanak on the river Ravi, and a regular worship that consisted of the singing of his own hymns, bhajans, was established there for his followers. Irrespective of their former creed, caste, or gender, his followers ate together in the common kitchen called langar, and the sacred space thus created by Baba Guru Nanak was known as Dharma Sal, and it is now known as Guru Dwara. Before his death in 1539, Baba Guru Nanak appointed one of his followers as his successor, and his name was Lehna, and afterward he came to be known as Guru Angad, signifying that he was a part of Baba Guru Nanak. Guru Angad compiled the composition of Baba Guru Nanak, to which he added his own in a new script known as Gurumukhi. And the three successors of Guru Angad also wrote under the name of Nanak, and all of their compositions were compiled by Guru Arjan, fifth Guru of Sikhs, Arjan, in 1604. To this compilation were added the writings of other figures like Sheikh Farid, Sant Kabir, Bhagat Namdev, and Guru Tegh Bahadur. In 1706, his compilation was authenticated by his son and successor Guru Gobind Singh. So, and it is now known as Guru Granth Sahib, the holy scripture of the Sikhs. Understand? So, afterward, one thing is more important here. By the beginning of the 17th century, the town of Ramdaspur, Amritsar, had developed around the central Gurudwara called Harmandir Sahib Golden Temple. Golden Temple. It was virtually self-governing, and modern historians refer to the early 17th century Sikh community as a state within the state. The Mughal Emperor Jahangir looked upon them as a potential threat, and he ordered the execution of Guru Arjan in 1606, and the Sikh movement began to get politicized in the 17th century, a development which culminated in the instructions of the Khalsa by Guru Gobind Singh in 1699. The community of Sikhs called Khalsa Panth became a political entity. So I hope that you have understood all this clearly. Thanks for watching the video.